Hello again, watching Everard Junction, and today is just another quick layout update. I've sort of been all over the place on the layout recently, doing little bits and pieces that haven't been worth filming on their own, but they have made a difference, so I figured, well, I'll just cover all those bits and pieces in this particular update. The first thing, which a lot of you haven't seen, certainly not up close, is the completion of the retaining wall. I did this about a month or two ago when I was doing the canal scene. I ordered another 3 pieces, and as you can see, it now runs the whole length of this back section. So if we look all the way from over on the scenic side, it runs all the way along the back, right up to the town scene. I think it looks much better than the warehouses I had here. It looked a bit odd with just the two or three warehouses and then it just suddenly turning into a retaining wall. I'm much happier with that. It'll need to be painted obviously, but that's another job to do. I'll get round to that at some point. Something else I've been doing is continuing my crusade on trying to get the layout as level as possible. I've had the layout probably in one form or another about 4 or 5 years now. Probably 5 years was when I laid the bottom layer down here. Over that time, things have settled down, certain bits of wood have warped, and if I'm honest, it probably wasn't as level as it could have been when I built the thing in the first place. So I've been going around leveling various things. I've covered this previously in a couple of updates, most notably over on the countryside section, but there's 2 other areas that I've done. First one was over here underneath the town scene. It's a slight bump underneath the town scene. Although it wasn't noticeable, it caused the occasional derailment, and occasionally some items of stock would uncouple. So again, underneath, fiddled around with the legs, managed to get things a lot flatter. And although you can't see a difference, it is noticeably better. Another spot where I did some more levelling was this helix, and I've basically just gone around it and I've just made doubly sure that everything is nice and smooth and gradual. So you'll remember when I did this top section over here, I flattened all this out, which now looks much better. The added bonus of that was it made that corner where it first enters the helix, made that nice and flat and a nice smooth progressive gradient down until we get to the full gradient that eventually leads to the bottom. So that was much better. When I levelled this top section, what eventually happened was the gap between the helix here and the baseboard became too small, and the locos wouldn't fit underneath. Now I checked all the measurements. It wasn't a fault of the baseboards themselves, they were in the right place. It was the helix itself, it just wasn't quite right, and it warped a little bit over time, I'm sure. So I've put this bracing in, as you can see. The longer piece ensures the distance between the top and bottom layer stays the same. There's a fair bit of pressure from the top board because it has warped slightly. There's a fair bit of pressure pushing down on there, and then I've got this smaller piece which lifts up this section here a little bit to get the clearance sort of just right. I found when I braced this that this started to move around a little bit and the gaps weren't perfect. As you can see, it is fairly tight under there. The gap's about 3 inches. I recommend you stick to 3 inches. Any less than that you're going to have problems. So I don't know how well you can tell on camera just by looking at the thing as a whole, but it is much smoother now, particularly this section here, this quarter. It is a lot better. I've noticed since I've done all this work that the running quality of the trains and derailments has been much improved. I don't get anywhere near as much trouble as I used to get over here. Still get the odd bit of trouble because it is a helix. You're always going to have issues, but it's a lot more reliable than it was. Moving over to this helix, this one didn't need quite so much work. I don't know if it's just because the floor, this section of the house is more level, so when I built it, it just came out better. This one's always been okay. The only issue I have had is, again, this top quarter, as it joins the top of the baseboard. I don't have the luxury on the other side of the layout where it flattens out. The gradient remains continuous, and then the levelling is done pretty much as soon as it joins the top. This piece had sagged slightly, and what was happening was this gradient was slightly slightly too extreme, and what was happening was as the locos were just cresting the top there, quite often the leading bogie on some of the larger diesels would derail, especially at high speed. So I already had a piece of bracing over here, so what I did was I just adjusted it, and I basically jacked up this quarter, and it makes the transition from the gradient to the actual layout much smoother. And again, running qualities seem to have improved significantly since I've done that. So now the helixes are as smooth as they're going to get, really, and I've ironed out various issues, bumps and bits and bobs with the main scenic layout boards. I actually had a chance last week to try and run a steam loco again. That featured in the last video I did about the different eras on the layout, which a lot of you seem to like. It seemed to go down pretty well. What I did after that video was I set about adding some additional weight, or trying to add some additional weight, to the Class 5 MT that featured at the beginning of the video that a lot of you seem to like very much. That was a loco from the old layout. I never got rid of it because I liked it too much, so I've just kept it ever since, but I've never been able to run it until now. I've managed to get some extra weight in there. I've added about 40 grams in total, and I used Deluxe Materials liquid gravity to do that. I'll show you the underneath the locomotive shortly, and you can get a better idea of what I did. And if you look now, there's pictures of the kitchen scales with how much the locomotive weighed to begin with, and then afterwards when I finished adding the weight. Adding that 40 grams seems to have just been enough to get the thing to work properly and go around the layout with 5 coaches. I'm not sure how much more it would be able to cope with, but 5 coaches is enough for me. My previous layout was set during the 1960s, so that's where the steam loco came from. I didn't go out and buy it, especially for the video or anything. They are items of stock that I have had lying around for quite a long time. That steam loco and the coaches are probably some of the oldest items of stock that I own, although they're still of relatively recent tooling. Bought those in about probably 2006, 2007, and I just didn't want to get rid of them. I got rid of most of the stuff, but there's a few things I kept hold of. You can see it's just come onto the helix now, and it does still struggle a little bit. It's not perfectly seamless, but it does at least make the climb, which it certainly didn't used to. I'd be lucky to get the thing to pull 2 coaches up here, so now that it's pulling 5, significantly better. So this would be my sort of heritage rake on the layout. I'm going to have to try and put another siding under the layout baseboard somewhere to keep hold of it. That shouldn't be too difficult, just need to buy a bit of track. As you can see, it now makes an entire lap of the layout. I'm contemplating repainting the 5MT. It's a weathered version, it looks quite grimy. Obviously, in preservation and running on rail tours, the locomotives are kept much cleaner than that. So I might repaint it into British Rail lined black or something. But if I do that, I'll need to renumber it, and then that gets into the whole minefield of which loco carried what tender and God knows what else. So I need to do some research on that. Another project I've started working on is these Bachmann nuclear flasks. I had one of these, number 23, for a while now, probably about a year, and it's been a very long-term project to make a nice realistic 1980s flask train. I picked up another example of the wagon. Quite often they were seen hauled in pairs. You could see them singularly, pairs, and then threes and fours were less common, but you did see those as well. So I've started work on making some Rna wagons. These were the barrier wagons that ran with the flasks during this period. They were rebuilt from HEA coal hoppers that had become redundant, and some of them had the coal hopper removed and the top part plated over, as you can see on this old Hornby example that I made. These wagons have never been available ready to run. I think there was an exclusive with Model Zone a couple of years ago, but that was literally just an HEA hopper with the recoded tops plate on the side. If you want to make one of these, you have to make it yourself. pretty much, using plasticard and 2 HEA wagons. So I've taken 2 out of my HEA rake. These are the newer Bachmann HEAs, which are better tooling than this older Hornby example, although this Hornby one's still okay. So I'm going to be making some new Rna wagons to run with the 2 flasks. I've already got the brake van, so once that's complete, that will feature as a rake of stuff on the layout. So, but again, long-term project, it's not particularly high on my list of things to do, so that will come in the future. I've done a little bit of scenic work in this corner over here. This will ultimately join the suburb scene, which is currently downstairs being worked on. I'm about, probably about halfway through, and those of you who've watched the video, you'll know that I'm doing a little series on the progress of building that. But I'm very much looking forward to bringing that up, putting it in this corner. Obviously I'll have to find somewhere to put the stuff, but that's not a problem. Once it's up here, I'm looking forward to that, because that's going to tie together the whole scene. Should flow really well, trying to get everything to flow together. And I also have a back scene which I need to put up, which will run along the back of the retaining wall also. So there'll be some exciting changes coming over in this section of the layout in the near future. But I just need to get my arse in gear and actually get on with it. I seem to be going round in circles at the moment. There's lots and lots of bits and pieces I keep working on, but we'll get there in the end. Somebody asked me a couple of videos ago if they could see the Class 20s running again, so here they come. I usually use these with the CMX track cleaner on track cleaning duties, so they don't often get filmed, although the actual locos do get used quite a lot. So there they are, running with my rake of HEA coal hoppers. I make a nice pair. Also got the 58 running today. Haven't run that for a while, but seems fine. All my Helgen locos very, very smooth, very reliable. You just seem to sit in a siding for ages and you just turn them on and they're fine. Work no problem at all. Also got the 101 and the 31 going around the layout today. The 101 I reviewed fairly recently. Very nice model, very smooth. It's doing a nice job of a little suburban service into the station. And I've also got the 31 running with the bagged mail train. Still need to weather those coaches. Also pleased to report that the canal scene is doing fine since I completed most of the scenic work on it. Taking a little bit of a break from it for now. I don't want to burn myself out on this area, so again, still got to source a canal boat. A couple of places I know where to get hold of one, that's not a problem. Just need to get one ordered. And there's a few bits of extra greenery and scenery work that I'd like to do. Yeah, it's been up for a few months now, and it seems to be okay. I was worried about the water, as you know, and I was worried what the water would do after everything had set and had been allowed to settle. But as you can see, it hasn't gone cloudy or anything. It's still clear, relatively clear anyway. As you know, obviously through that whole series, I added lots of paints in there to make the thing look like a proper canal. But yeah, it seems okay. I haven't had any nasty reactions or anything with the shopping trolley. It all seems to be okay. So hopefully it'll stay okay. So I'll just quickly give you a look at the 5MT, and I'll show you what I had to do to it to get the extra weight in there. That was quite a tricky job. I wouldn't recommend that for anyone who's just starting out in the hobby. You can easily break stuff, but certainly worth doing. It makes the well, it makes it usable. I couldn't use it before, so a worthwhile job. Okay, so the first thing I did was I took the body off and had a look inside. The problem with steam locos, those that you own them will know this, the chassis are very narrow because they have to fit inside the boiler. Now obviously for a diesel that's not a problem, because the diesel is as wide as the running plate, so the whole chassis tends to be made of steel with a diesel, and will be almost twice as wide. So the diesels never really have a problem with weight, because there's always more metal inside. Now I looked up a couple of things on how to add weight to this locomotive and others, to get a general idea of what to go about doing. Most people would fill the area where the DCC decoder goes with additional weight, usually lead. Now that's a problem for me, because this is a DCC layout, so I have to have the DCC decoder. I can't just, you know, throw it away and use the space vacated to make the loco heavier. So what I ended up doing was I rerouted the wiring harness for the decoder. The socket for it's about here in this loco. I rerouted the wire for it. Instead of going further back into the DCC sort of like jacket, there's like a plastic slot where the DCC decoder goes. I put it further forward into the smoke box. There's a small area up here where you can fit the decoder. I wasn't going to put any weight over there, because if you look at the wheel arrangement of the 5MT, all that is underneath the smoke box is the pony truck. So any weight I put at the front would quite simply shift the centre of gravity from the driving wheels onto the truck at the front, and I would end up with either the same level of traction, or if anything it would get worse. So with the decoder moved up to the front, I was able to use the space in the middle, most of it's over the first driving wheel, to add extra weight. So there's, as I said, there's a small sort of plastic slot in there where you can put the decoder, and I was able to fill that with Deluxe Materials liquid gravity, and that added a fair bit of weight to the loco, and more importantly it was over the driving wheels. So that was the first thing I did. The next thing I did was inside the cab. You can see I've added some liquid gravity to the floor around by the firebox. When the loco's running, it's very difficult to tell that it's there. I've still got sufficient room in there to place a crew, which will further hide the liquid gravity, and more importantly it's additional weight, and it's over the rear driving axle. So now I've got some weight near the front and near the back. That added about 15 to 20 grams. Unfortunately it still wasn't enough. The locomotive still wasn't heavy enough. These are the leaf springs for the axles. You can just see either side there. They're pretty much a solid piece of plastic. Looking at the side of the wheels, you can see the leaf spring, and if you look really carefully you can see a little gap through the leaf spring and the rest of the plastic, which will reveal some of the liquid gravity. But from normal viewing distance, and certainly reasonably close up with the camera, you can't tell. So I was able to hide quite a lot of liquid gravity, as you can see, between the two springs for each axle. I've left all the screws uncovered, so I can still take the loco apart, I can still service it, and it still looks pretty much, you know, as it did when it was brand new. However, this added a fair amount of extra weight, so eventually all these extra little bits and pieces totaled about 40 grams, which made a massive difference to how well this loco performs on the layout. The final thing I did was give the loco a really good oiling and a service. It hadn't run very much on the old layout, because the old layout was, well, it was rubbish. Everything would derail, and larger locomotives such as this 5MT was almost a no-go. One of the reasons why I never got rid of it was because I'd hardly used it, so I wanted to keep hold of it, as well as the coaches. They were hardly used either. So it's nice to actually give this loco an opportunity to stretch its legs on a nice big layout that actually works. So I will leave you with some further shots of the trains running. Everything seems to be running pretty well today, so I will film it while I can before we get a derailment. And I will be back soon with another video, which will probably be on the suburb scene. I'll also leave you with some more shots of the 5MT running, as I know a lot of you like your steam trains, as do I. So we'll have some good shots of that running as well.